Hello, my name's Gavin. This is Genre Books, and as you can see from the empty space here, this is another bookshelf. Exploration, excavation, one of the two. I lied to you in the last episode, I'm afraid. I showed you the Ballantine Adult Fantasy book series, or the ones that I have. I said the covers don't get any better after this. Then I found that 4 of that Ballantine Adult Fantasy were in fact in this shelf. So for these 4 books, the covers are as good. E.R. Eddison's Mistress of Mistresses. And here, as you can see, is the worm Ouroboros featured again. And featured yet again in A Fish Dinner in Memison. We have Beyond the Fields We Know by Lord Dunsany. And A Voyage to Arcturus by David Lindsay. I read this book when I was, I'm going to guess, 8 or 9 years old, and I've not read it since. Isn't this copy that I read, but this is a puffin book, so it is, for children. But this is for children from 1958. But this was first published in 1885, King Solomon's Mines by H. Rider Haggard. And the next is a 5-star paperback, A Piece of Martin Cann by Laurence M. Janifer. This is science fiction from, I'm going to guess, mid to late 60s. When? Oh, okay. A little bit out. 1972, I think. So I think it's in Roman numerals. I think that's 72. A book I know nothing about. W.A. Harbison's Revelation. It's a sequel to a book called Genesis. So I'm going to guess there is some sort of biblical connection. And with this, there is some terrible destruction on the earth. So I don't know how religious this gets. I don't know whether I need to have read Genesis first. I'm not sure that I have Genesis. All questions I will have to examine when I come to log all these books in a massive old spreadsheet. In last week's episode we had Kenneth Flint's reimagining of Northern Iron. Here we have the same for Scotland. This is Deborah Turner Harris with The Queen of Ashes. This is the continuing saga of Caledon, so sounds a little bit like Caledonia. I don't know how continuing this is. I'll have to see how long the series is and where in the series this book turns up. Some Harry Harrison now, and 3 books in the Stainless Steel Rat series. So the Stainless Steel Rat, The Stainless Steel Rat Wants You, and The Stainless Steel Rat's Revenge. A science fiction book, post-apocalyptic future tale from an author that until I saw this on the shelf, I had no idea had written science fiction. And that is L.P. Hartley and Facial Justice. In the 60s and 70s, this author was inexplicably popular in the UK. Not anything to do with his writing, but these are war stories, but with the Germans as protagonists. To be honest, the author is Danish, so I don't think the Germans come off well, but there's still the focal point. Anyway, I bought these because I was going to take part in an event last year about war. The event hasn't been repeated, I think these will probably be okay for men's adventure when I next come to it. I could have read one of these for Garb August and didn't. I'm not going to buy any more of his books until I've read these and see whether I like them. But this is Sven Hassel, and we have Court Martial, Liquidate Paris, and Comrades of War. And here we have, all you had to do to sell 1 million in the UK in the 60s or the 70s. So this is first published by Corgi in 68, but it's first published in England in 63 by Fawcett Publications, and this is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is the 11th printing of this particular book. A couple of Nathaniel Hawthorne books, so The House of the Seven Gables and The Scarlet Letter, both of which are great. Probably prefer House of the Seven Gables, and I'd probably prefer the other major books from him to those two. So I think Marble Fawn is my favourite. After that, probably Blithedale Romance, then Gables, then Scarlet Letter. I'm probably missing one along the way somewhere. But yeah, really like Hawthorne regardless. So I do really rate the Scarlet Letter, but it still comes bottom of the pile. And now for a stack of Heinlein. We have A Farmer in the Sky, Tunnel in the Sky, Revolt in 2100, and quite possibly in the Sky as well, The Green Hills of Earth, Waldo and Magic Incorporated, and Farnham's Freehold. Timefall by James Cann from 1988. Or this printing is from 1988. When the book was actually written, it's written in 87. I have read some James Cann before, because James Cann wrote the novelisation of The Return of the Jedi. So I probably read that book back in 83, 84. So I would have been nine-ish years old. I remember reading and rereading that book. I think I had it long before I saw the film. I had by that point seen the first 2 films in the cinema, and I think we had the first film on VHS, and it's one of those tapes that I would have absolutely worn down. So getting another story in Star Wars, even in book form, was absolute gold dust to me. This next is a book I'm really interested to read. It's David Karp 1. This is some kind of half satire, half dystopian piece, and has been mentioned in the same breath by contemporary reviewers as 1984 or Brave New World, which I suppose are pretty lazy comparisons, but I'm still intrigued as to what this book might be like. And 3 books from Guy Gavriel Kay, who we did see in last week's bookshelf excavation, but not fully visible. He is the editorial assistant to Christopher Tolkien for the Silmarillion. So quite how much input he had there, I'm not sure, but this is working on the Silmarillion is where Guy Gavriel Kay was introduced to fantasy, which is not a bad place to start. And I think these books, the Fiona Var Tapestry, might be his first works. So we have The Summer Tree, The Wandering Fire, and in a version which annoyingly doesn't match the first 2, Volume 3, The Darkest Road. The next book I think will be an enlightening read. This is Josephus, the Jewish War. So this is about 2,000 years old. So this is detailing AD 66 or thereabouts. So we still have characters in here. I say characters, real life people. Pontius Pilate, King Herod, Vespasian, and it deals with the uprising of the indigenous Jewish population trying to get rid of the Romans. And although Josephus was a Jewish governor of Galilee, he is very much the Romans' man and is a bit of a suck up. So he sides with the Romans in all of his accounts. But I think that, there's probably some really interesting stuff in here. A book I had on my pile of possibilities for Spring into Adventure this last spring, but didn't get round to, is Wilfred Thesiger's Arabian Sands. Next up, The Adventures of Dr. Sin, or The Further Adventures of Dr. Sin by Russell Thorndike. This is a local author. It's also a book, not this particular book, but one book in the series was made into a film by Disney back in the 60s with Patrick McGoohan in the title role. Russell Thorndike, probably best known as an actor rather than a writer, and here he is on the back of the book looking rather dapper. Next up is another war novel, this time back to the Second World War and 633 Squadron. So we're on the Allied side, finally. And this is the 21st reprint of Frederick E. Smith's 633 Squadron. Again, another book that was made into a film, or famous film, often repeated in my childhood on the television, and I should imagine for some people watching this there is now a theme tune already going around in your head. But yes, this is about a squadron of planes who go off to bomb a German U-boat station. I haven't read the book, I'm trying to remember the film. Want to read this though, this would be a good way to remember the film. Here is some future Garb August fodder. Alistair MacLean's Death Train. Not written by Alistair MacLean. It's written by Alistair McNeill. Based on an original back of the envelope scribble by Alistair MacLean. I don't know how much was already in place for this book that was written by Alistair MacLean, if I'm completely honest. It says it's based on an outline from MacLean, but doesn't give much more detail than that. But I should imagine this is, proper adventure fodder. Late 80s fantasy again, and Riddle of the Seven Realms. This is the third book in Magic by the Numbers by Lyndon Hardy, and I have read the first two of these. So I have read Master of the Five Magics and Secret of the Sixth Magic. They, well, do you know what? I will do a review of all three of those books once I have finished this last one. Certainly the first book in this series was a big influence on the people who created the Magic the Gathering card game. But I'll get into that when I review them. Another series that I have not yet finished, but I'm pretty close to finishing, and that is Barsoom. So Edgar Rice Burroughs. I don't know if this is the next one or the next but one in the series, but Swords of Mars. So this is the New English Library version. It's a bit of a battered old paperback, but it was not a great not a great big outlay. So I think Swords of Mars might be the next one, or Synthetic Men of Mars. I'm not sure. But I will be finishing Barsoom at some point. I think I last read one back in April, so I'm April or May. So I'm slowly working my way through the series. This book I got on the recommendation of Roy from Roy Reads Anything. It is Blackpool Vanishes. First book publication from Lee Brackett is this Ace? I think this is Ace. Ace Books from 1967. Unfortunately, it is a battered old version which is held together by sellotape and has a chunk taken out of the, well, actually both top corners. So not in a great state, but a reader copy, shall we say, The Coming of the Terrans. So I shall probably read this and deal with it. I'll either get a nicer version or not, but I don't think I'll be keeping this once I've read it. In Pan Books, Arthur C. Clarke, The Sands of Mars. Penguin, Fifth Planet by Fred and Jeff Hoyle. And Jack Vance, The Houses of Ism. Now, I'm in a quandary here because I do need to make space. I have this book as one half of an ace double, but how can I ignore a cover like that? That's brilliant. This is from Mayflower, and I'm going to guess late 60s, early 70s, so 74, not too far off. I want to keep this one. Do you know what? I'll read it and then decide whether it's worth having two copies. Another Alan Dean Foster. This is Cyberway. This is Ace Books, Ace Science Fiction, 1990. Ray Bradbury, The Golden Apples of the Sun. So this is, it's a battered old corgi, but it's a great cover. And here is a pocket fantasy paperback from, I think, 87 from Richard Cowper or Cooper. And do you know what? Here is a mid-80s fantasy cover which looks fantastic. This is also signed by the author and dedicated to Margaret. There's also a letter in here from the author to Brian and Margaret, and it's a thank you note, and it is thanking Brian and Margaret for inviting them to their first post-con party. At that point, I did wonder what kind of convention it was. And as it transpired, by the end of the letter, Richard is saying that he's also been enjoying Trillion-Year Spree and has been amazed all over again at the sheer sweep and breadth of vision. So at that point I realised that Brian in the letter is Brian Aldiss and Margaret is Margaret Aldiss. So this was the copy of The Road to Calais that would have sat on their shelves. So given that turned up in a job lot of books, I was quite happy with that find. Isaac Asimov. I knew I'd find some more Asimov on the shelves, and this is The Martian Way. A battered 80s paperback and a trilogy, the Star Wolf trilogy from Edmund Hamilton, and this is some works of Edmund Hamilton from the late 60s, so compiled here. Do you know what? I thought I had this. This is Genesis by A Harbinson, so the prequel to Revelation. Well, I suppose it would have to be, wouldn't it? This would have done for Garb August as well. There is a global conspiracy of such enormity that those who encounter even its own outermost fringes are inevitably contaminated. This is hyperbolic language in the blurb on both Genesis and Revelation. It might well have done for Garb August, were it not for the fact that that's over 600 pages, and I do have to try to fit a lot in. I am going to have to take some time at some point to do a go slow and say, do you know what? Maybe I'll save up some book tags so I can do lots of videos and read fewer but longer books for a little while. I've got to find some mechanism to talk about what I'm reading but have time to read something at, a bit more of a leisurely pace. I don't want to zip through anything sort of 600-700 pages long. Speaking of which, Peter F. Hamilton. So I have read some Peter F. Hamilton before. I think one book. I can't remember what the title of it was. It was a long time ago. This is The Dreaming Void, and Peter F. Hamilton likes to write long books. This is tantalisingly short of 800 pages. This is 796 pages long. From Ace Books, 1971, Philip Jose Farmer, The Wind Wails of Ishmael. Part of the Shadow World series is a new novel based on the fantastic role-playing universe. This is Ian Hamill's Storm Riders. And another chunky Peter F. Hamilton. This is Pandora's Star. This one is that is comfortably bigger. That is 1144 pages. Questar Fantasy from 1988, Neil Hancock, The Wanderer's Return. Annoyingly, third book in a series. We're in the home straight now. I should have finished this book by the time this video is out, because I hopefully am reading it in September for Cimmerian September, and that is Conan, The Coming of Conan the Cimmerian by Robert E. Howard. It is a very nice hardback first edition Arthur C. Clarke, The Songs of Distant Earth. First UK edition, 1955, of Edgar Pangborn's A Mirror for Observers. First UK edition of The God Whale by T.J. Bass. Demon Moon from Jack Williamson. First printing of Barry N. Maltzberg's Guernica Night. Tanith Lee, Personal Darkness. Kim Stanley Robinson's 40 Signs of Rain. A book I've definitely shown in a book haul before now. I got this back in February, and it is Blood and Thunder, Mid-Victorian Melodrama and Its Origins by Maurice Wilson Disher. And I showed this book because not only is it signed, but it's signed to Phyllis Hartnell, who was probably more famous than the author. She was the editor of the Oxford Companion to Theatre. She was an authority on theatre, and there is not only a nice letter from the author to her, but as we go through the book, Miss Hartnell has notated this and corrected the author where needed. She got dating. So a picture here says it's from Surrey in 1820. She'd put who the picture was by and correctly dated it 1829, and again is correcting his dates and attributions. You can tell he's normally mostly correct. 1844 he's got here, and she's said no, 17th of June 1845. So she is very much marking his homework, and I love it. If I have time in Victober, and I don't think I do at this point, it might be worth reading this. I will maybe have to look at mid-Victorian melodrama at some point, and just so I have something to talk about, just so I'm able to talk about this book, because it looks fantastic. Raymond Chandler's The Big Sleep. So this is from the Folio Society, part of a series that they did. I don't have any of the others, I'm afraid. But as you can imagine from Folio Society, it's a smashing book and comes with its own slipcase. And finally, for today, Lord of Emperors by Guy Gavriel Kay. So it's the second book of the Sarantine Mosaic, and also signed. And that's your lot. Next week, these books. So expect lots of Science Fiction Club of Great Britain and Readers Union action. Until then,